Well, hello, everybody. It's that time, our quarterly Ask Lee Anything with Real Mushrooms. My name is Joni Kamlet, and I oversee the pet and the practitioner departments for Real Mushrooms. And I'm delighted to share the screen with my colleague and dear friend, Chief Medical Herbalist, Lee Carroll. Hey, Lee, how's it going?
Hi, Joni. How you doing?
Good. It's good to see you. It's
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. So it's morning in Brisbane, Australia, right? Or mid-morning?
Yeah, it's 10 a.m. for me, and it's Friday, so I'm a ways ahead.
Okay. And it's warm where you are. You're
We're
summer now.
fully into summer. Yeah, it's been unseasonably hot. Yeah, we've had a very hot spring and a very hot early start to the summer, much hotter than usual. And then that brings lots of storms. So we've had huge hail and lots of damaging winds and stuff.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, here in Northern California, so I'm in Berkeley, it's been unseasonably cold, and we've got there's this fog bank that's sat over this part of California for like a few weeks now, making it like over in like Lafayette and Moraga where the seminar was. It's 20 degrees colder than it is over here in Berkeley. But
yeah, I've seen satellite images of that fog bank. It's just massive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's been great for mushrooms, though, because like I'm on all these mushroom pages and the mushroom foragers are going nuts because porcinis are popping up all over the Berkeley Hills. And
Oh,
so
wow.
they're just like, apparently there's I just let the cat out of the bag live. Everybody's going to be running up into the Berkeley Hills and finding all the porcinis before I get there.
Well, geographically, that's not very precise location. There's a lot of Berkeley Hills.
Somewhere in the Berkeley Hills, but probably anywhere you go. Apparently, the fog, the kiss of the fog, they're saying is causing this massive mushroom bloom. So anybody
the porcini mushroom is the one that there's the earliest evidence of human consumption. So humans have been consuming porcini mushrooms, and they grow all around the world, probably for as long as we've been human. So it's like the number one kind of evolutionarily relevant mushroom for us to eat, and arguably the most delicious. Everybody's got their favorites, but I think porcini, when it's fresh, is right up there.
Yeah, and it's expensive. Fresh porcini, like if you can
golly, you've got to take a mortgage out to buy a meal's worth.
So that's what I'm going to be doing this weekend, is going up into the Berkeley Hills and see if I can have some luck with the porcini bloom. But anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about calming the holiday hustle, stress and sleep support with functional mushrooms. And actually, before we start, you should probably give some sort of disclaimer.
Oh, yeah, the disclaimer. We're not providing any medical advice. If you've got any health issues, you really need to see your, healthcare provider. We're giving you background information on from an educational point of view that can just allow you to understand your personal use of mushrooms, in more detail.
There you go. That works. Oh gosh, the holiday hustle. Every time I think that I'm going to be going into the holidays and like just doing it in a chill way, it just doesn't happen. You can't even driving or going into the grocery store, even if you're not involved in like holiday shopping or, trying to stay out of it, it's like you can't escape from just the general stress of this season. And that's not to mention like the stress of seeing family and everything.
It can be triggering in lots of different ways.
And definitely can affect sleep. I just want to give a shout out. I have just increased my how much reishi I'm taking. I love reishi for sleep. And I've just increased my reishi dose from 1 every evening to 3 every evening. And I'm just like, so what is that? 15? I'm taking 1,500 milligrams at night.
Of extract.
The extract the capsules, and I'm just loving it. And I'm sure we're
and each capsule is the equivalent of 4 grams of the dried mushroom. So, and we need to use those equivalents to get a reference point for the traditional use of that, because traditionally they didn't use capsules. So that's a 12-gram dose equivalent to the dried mushroom. And that's significantly in the kind of therapeutic, functional, healthy, good for you range.
Yeah. Well, I'm finding it. I mean, can't say for sure, but it seems to be helping me drop off to sleep at night. I'll put it that way.
And if we could start there, there's a lot of misinformation about reishi and sleep, and we don't really know what the connection is. We do know there is a connection. There's a long-held traditional connection, and like any natural product, it will be effective at different levels across different people. So for some people, they don't see any benefit. Some people, it's like a home run. And the evidence often gets misquoted. So we have GABA receptors, GABA A receptors, and when GABA binds to that receptor, it alters the shape of it. It allows chloride ions to come in, and that calms things down. So if you can have a binding at that receptor, like benzodiazepines as a drug class, they've got their own binding pocket on that receptor, and that's what calms you down. Kava has a separate binding pocket on that receptor, and that's what allows kava to calm you down very safely without any side effects. So the animal research gets misinterpreted as reishi binds into GABA A receptors, which is not actually what was reported in the animal studies. And what was actually observed was that reishi alters the inflammatory environment of the body to allow those GABA A receptors to become more functional. So by lowering the inflammatory tone, it allows that particular receptor to be free from the burden of the dysfunctional environment, and to allow that receptor then to function properly, and then you get a calmer level of relaxation. So it's unlikely that mechanism to work just on a single dose. You'd need to do it for a period of time to derive that benefit. There's other lines of research that suggest that there's transformation in the gut of the triterpenes of reishi, and it's those metabolites that have got interactions with currently unknown receptors in the nervous system to bring about a calmer state. And both are likely to be true, and very often there's multiple mechanisms of action. And that latter mechanism, the gut altering the reishi to have a particular benefit, is probably how many natural products derive some of their benefit. And it explains the variation in the community, that depending on the bacteria in your gut, you can have some type of transformation or no transformation, or a different type of transformation. So that's why gut health becomes so important. And reishi is significantly prebiotic. So regular use of reishi will alter your gut, and that would help to bring about, those improvements in the metabolites that then have the sleep kind of action.
That's fascinating. I have to confess, a lot of that goes over my head when you like go so deep into the chemistry of it. But I heard lowers inflammation, and works with the gut microbiome, and that there is some evidence of reishi supporting.
And that sounds deep, but it isn't really. And when you're on social media and looking at those things that I've just mentioned are all kind of regular topics of conversation. And people rattle those names off as if they're experts in them, when they don't actually understand really what's going on.
Right.
So
no, I love hearing the explanation. I'm just admitting, just in case anyone out in the audience is going, "What the heck? I don't understand." It's like, well, get used to hanging out with Lee. A lot of what you say is it's fascinating to listen to. Don't understand it completely, but love hearing all about it, And what I find is when I hear it repeatedly, it
starts to make sense.
It starts to make sense, and it starts to sink in. I do want to welcome folks, and I also want to mention that we are running a promo. So we do this with all of our lives where we run a promo. And so if you might want to write it down or take a screenshot. If you use the promo code RESTWELL25, you're going to be able to get 25% off site-wide for until December 31st. So that's a really nice discount, especially with the holidays and everything. Maybe you missed Black Friday. This is still a great opportunity to get that 25% off and buy all your Christmas gifts. Buy them health. Buy them mushrooms.
Yeah, totally. Or stock up. The mushrooms need to be taken long term.
Yep.
And that's when you see the best benefits.
Yeah.
You can buy a year's worth of reishi, and then that's 25% off a year's worth of reishi.
Actually, was that a medical claim? No, I'm you may sleep like a baby. How about that? Occasionally sleeping like a baby. Robin's asking, will there be a replay where there be the ability to replay this? Yes, Robin. Every time we do these lives, right when they're over, they play on Facebook, and we also have a YouTube channel. Real Mushrooms has a YouTube channel, and they live there as well. So let's jump into some questions. Britta, do you want to pick one? Oh, by the way, Britta, our wonderful Britta Barubi, she assists the pet and practitioner line, and she's Oz behind the scenes. We couldn't do this without her posting things for us. So Lori's asking, would love to know which mushroom is the top when you're full of arthritis and looking for the best as far as immune function goes. Well, that's a good question.
That is a good question. Hard to answer in a FDA compliant manner. An arthritis is more than just one thing. And there aren't any mushrooms that are notable for arthritis like there is in the herbal world, where you could pick bioavailable curcumin, boswellia, celery seed, devil's claw, the ginger. That list is quite long. So from a mushroom point of view, pretty much any mushroom at a functional dose is going to improve and support the microbiota and the microbiome. That will help to lower the kind of the inflammatory tone in the body and get the immune system functioning optimally. So I think that, from that point of view, I think that the 5 defenders from Real Mushrooms, not just the 2 capsules a day, which is what's recommended on the serving size, but 2 capsules twice a day, not 1 capsule twice a day. So 4 capsules a day over the long course would start to, turn the dial and support all of the other things that's going on.
Yeah. No, that I was thinking the same thing, 5 defenders. And, for those people out there that have only met Lee through Real Mushrooms so far, we're lucky that Lee is a medical herbalist and has over 30 years of herbal experience.
Since 1990. So
1990. Wow. So even longer than that. So you mentioned boswellia, you mentioned bioavailable curcumin.
Celery seed's a bit more obscure, but I use a lot of that in clinic. Good quality ginger extracts or even fresh ginger, are fantastic. And there's arthritis is a big category. I gather from the question that, maybe there's an autoimmune component, so more down the rheumatoid arthritis category. So, mushrooms support that process quite nicely.
Yeah. And my understanding is that basically all mushrooms are not only immune modulating, but they have anti-inflammatory properties to them. Would you say
True.
that's
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So, at various levels, my understanding is also that like mushrooms are not the thing you would necessarily go to first for like arthritis or pain necessarily, but they can support a protocol that maybe includes some of the things that you mentioned.
Yeah. And I guess that's the essence of the question there. Like, if I'm doing all of this stuff, what's the mushroom that would be best to add on? I think not just one mushroom, but those 5 is a good choice.
Yeah. I like to think of the 5 defenders. It's like a whole body support product. Covers all the bases. Oh, it's nice to see more people. We've got more people and more questions coming in, and some dog questions too. So I hope that answers your question, Lori. This is a great question. How do functional mushrooms actually support the nervous system rather than just mask stress?
Yeah, that's a jolly good question. So we were just talking about inflammation as an example.
Yeah.
So inflammation's not one thing, and when the so the inflammatory tone in the body can be driven by what's happening in the gut. So if bits and pieces of bacteria go from the gut into the bloodstream, then that goes to the liver, and then you can get into circulation. So that the immune system recognizes those things as not being being foreign and would seek to get rid of them. So that increases the immune kind of alertness, and that is what creates the inflammation. So, the inflammation can be measured by certain molecules that get released, from the immune system. So by calming that down, it allows the tissues that get disturbed by those inflammatory signals to go back to their kind of normal kind of function. But if you think about a mushroom like lion's mane, for example, then lion's mane, we think and we know from animal studies that it mimics the trophic signals that the body naturally produces. So, and this is how natural products work in general. So there's when you overlap human physiology with the chemistry of the natural world, there are points of intersection where that chemistry has a natural and healthy interaction with our body. So lion's mane interacts with our body in the same way that the normal housekeeping signals would tell the nervous system to maintain their health and optimize their performance. So by taking lion's mane, you get a synergistic effect of improving just the general tone of the immune system. It doesn't kind of mask it. So if we go back to that original discussion about GABA A receptors, so if you take a benzodiazepine drug, you very aggressively open up that GABA A receptor and calm the nerves down. And that doesn't do anything to the tone of the nervous system. With long-term use, what it does do is make you dependent on that particular function for that thing to happen. So that's kind of like the worst case scenario where you've got a forceful intervention that makes you dependent down the track, and then those molecules interact in negative ways in other tissues. So, the way that the natural world does it is in synchronicity with how our body functions.
Great. Yeah, that's fascinating. And you mentioned lion's mane. So lion's mane is a great nervous system support. Other mushrooms would be what? Tremella, reishi.
Reishi, Tremella, Ergo Plus is underrated. So there's another mechanism. The way that if we were to look under a microscope, we could eventually get to the point where we could see all of the individual cells in all of the different tissues. So we've got skin cells, we've got liver cells, we've got muscle cells. If you could look inside them, they need to be maintained in a healthy state. And if it was like a little kind of machine, and the things inside it were like little motors and switches and highways and power plants and storage facilities, then that stuff all needs to work optimally, and ergothioneine gets in there and helps things stay in the correct shapes to make them work properly. So if you had an old school watch that had all of the gears in it and springs, if and there might be 200 gears in a watch to make it work properly, they've all got to be in their correct shapes. They're very flat and they've got so many teeth of a particular shape. So if it gets bent, it stops the whole watch from working. So ergothioneine plays the role of keeping all of the gears, using that analogy, in their right shape with the right number of teeth, so they can all interact properly, so you can have smooth functioning. So that's another way. And every mushroom has got a little bit of ergothioneine. Ergo Plus has got the highest amount. So that's another way that ergothioneine genuinely helps the nervous system. And we've got evidence from human studies that some of the receptors that receive the signals, so that the messages that the nervous system needs to do its job properly, are under that influence very significantly, and you can measure it in experiments in humans.
That's amazing. And of course, ergo always comes up. Anytime that anyone talks to you, Lee, I know it's like you are like ergo.
Yeah, well, if there's the goddess, there's the glucose goddess. I'm the emperor of ergo.
You're the emperor of ergo, Lee Carroll. Yes, that's right. And emperor, I'm happy to see ergo interest and ergo. We can tell how much people are interested in ergo by how much ergo we're selling. And the more you talk about it, the more people are coming on board with it and trying it out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
It makes me so
happy.
I
don't talk about it just because I like the idea. I mean, I talk about it because it's a fundamental aspect of our biology, just like a vitamin is. And people don't know about it, and people do need to know about it because it's really fundamental to how pretty much every cell in our body works, and therefore our whole health.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because, for those that don't know, Lee and I go back, to 2011. So almost 15 years now, we've known each other and have been working together. And I remember it was so long ago. It was before anybody was talking about it. You were so excited about the endocannabinoid system. And you did lectures and talks, and it was all you talked about was the endocannabinoid system. And you were years ahead of anybody that was talking about it. And now, and here we are, and it's become a part of our vocabulary. Like pretty much anyone that's in the health space, whether it's for humans or animals, probably has an understanding of what the endocannabinoid system is. So I'm hoping that ergo, the same thing is and it is happening. Yeah. So yay, go you emperor of ergo, Lee Carroll. So let's get to some, and actually I want to bring up, for those that have come on late, we do run a promo during this live. And so, Britta, if you could pop the promo up, it's Restwell 25. You can take a screenshot or write it down, and that's going to give you 25% off site-wide until December 31st, which is a really, really wonderful. So there you go. Okay, let's get that next question, Britta. Which mushroom is best for anxiety and depression? And then we're going to get to after this, we'll get to some of the questions that are in the, with the people on live. Yeah.
So I could reframe that as, which are the best mushrooms for occasional feelings of anxiousness and, mood issues.
There you go. It may help.
Yeah. With my kind of practitioner hat on, I would say that, herbs are front and center, like when that support is needed, and mushrooms play a backup role. So I would be probably, depending on the individual person asking me the question, the ergothioneine sits at the very basis of how the nervous system functions. And for many people who don't get enough of the ergothioneine on a regular basis, and no one really knows what the kind of relevant dose is. We know that there's a kind of in the US, the population's about 1 milligram a day on average. We know that you can look at populations around the world and say that 4 milligrams or 5 should be like the target, but no one knows what the legitimately healthy dose is in this modern world with all of the stuff that we have to deal with. So I would be recommending Ergo Plus along with either lion's mane or reishi or tremella, depending on the individual case. So it's never just a one kind of straight answer for these types of questions.
Yeah, I love the tremella, and I call tremella.
Yeah, you call it
go for it. You tell it.
The mushroom of optimism. Yeah.
The mushroom of optimism, because I find that when I take a tremella, I just feel my mood feels lighter and more optimistic. And I know that I remember talking to Dr. Davis Brockenshire, and he said, yeah, it has something to do with the glial cells. And he had a whole scientific
and
reason
when
for it.
People feel anxious, when people feel a bit moody, it's not just a single cause, it's very multifactorial. So, it's a complex answer. Yeah.
I would also, add to that as somebody, I wouldn't say I don't suffer. I'm blessed with not suffering from depression, but I do I tend towards the anxious side. I'm a worrier. I do deal with a fair amount of anxiety. And I have found that in addition to the tremella and the lion's mane, and I think the reishi is also helping, and actually the cordyceps too. Meditation has.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. Yeah, cordyceps helps for some people.
Meditation. I've been I've been a daily meditator for almost 40 years now, and that's made us very. And I know you also have a meditation practice.
Not nearly that regular.
Yeah, but I don't know how I would get through my day without meditation. It's like I wake up in the morning, use the bathroom, and sit on my mat. And it is.
You don't go via Instagram or Facebook?
I don't. I wait. Although I have to confess, before I get out of bed, I might look at my phone, and if there's something if there's a message there or something, I might look at it. But then I go and I sit on the mat, and it's that time before the day starts where it's fresh, and I can kind of focus on starting the day off in balance. And then I was talking to you the other day about the walking practice. Going to the park and taking my shoes off and just putting my feet in the, in the grass, feeling the earth under me, feeling the grass, all of these things, especially right now during this very stressful season.
A lot to be said for all of that.
The mindful.
I was talking to someone who had Parkinson's disease, who I know very well. They're not a patient, but I know them extremely well. And I met them at the beach, and they said that as soon as they arrived at the beach, within a day, their symptoms were significantly better.
Wow.
Just being in the sea air, being relaxed, like having a swim.
Yeah. Just that connection with me on their swimming too. That's another,
And
oh gosh.
They commented that the improvement in their symptoms was similar to the benefits they get when they take the drug.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's available to all of us. I mean, I live in a city. I live in a downtown area. So but I can still get in nature. I can still go hug a tree, or, walk a block to the park. And there's, it's a small park, but there's grass and there's trees and there's the sky. I can look up at the sky, and it really does it for me. So let's move on to another question from Dennis. Giving my dog 5 Defenders for a month and switching to a 70-30 of Tremella and lion's mane. How long would you do this before taking a break and then starting again? main purpose is for the tick bites. I think, Lee, this is related to, there's a lot of people think that you should be cycling on and off mushrooms and rotating them. I see that a lot in the pet space.
There's no evidence for that.
Yeah.
There's no traditional practice around that, and I don't recommend it. Mushrooms are kind of foods and nutrients that the body needs on a regular basis. Having said that, you don't need to be taking something if you don't need it. But I think that dogs particularly, they didn't eat mushrooms in the wild. The most important nutrient for a dog is ergothioneine, because they got that through their evolutionarily relevant diet of consuming prey that were avid consumers of mushrooms. So wild pigs and wild deer eat large volumes of mushrooms. So the original dog, the wolf, would have got the ergothioneine from there. And then the mushrooms that you choose for the pet, should be directed at the general health. So I don't understand any mechanisms as to how consuming mushrooms would help tick bites, like prevent a tick bite. Having had a tick bite and then having an immune system which is more competent and capable to deal with any of the complications of that tick bite, mushrooms play a very, very important role in that process. And I think 5 Defenders is a really, really good choice, as a long-term, mushroom. But I think they're probably all really good in that category. So I don't think there's a need to take a break and start again. But if you want to rotate the mushrooms, to do a few months of 5 Defenders, do a few months of Tremella, do a few months of lion's mane, I think there's possibly merit in that.
Yeah, I guess so. One of the things that I'm curious about, because I see it mainly in the pet space, but there are some, some, I would say, influencers who are talking about, I've heard them mention that you shouldn't take a mushroom for too long because it will lose its effectiveness. And that's
that is simply not true.
Yeah. It's not I guess, maybe with certain things, you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, with something like a CBD where you can build up a tolerance and maybe have to increase the dosage.
Yeah. So the chemistry of the natural product that you use dictates the usage patterns. So people take, and CBD is a good example. You can take that and then infer that across everything in the natural world, and that's an inappropriate generalization to make. And it gets made about adaptogenic herbs as well, that if you take them too long, you'll lose the benefit. That isn't actually how they work.
Yeah. Well, thank you for confirming that there's no evidence that you have to I mean, of course, I like the advice that you gave about to dentists that you can rotate, especially if you have a healthy animal and you want to try different mushrooms. But, I worry about those people that have sick pets and they're actually responding. But there's this belief that you better switch to a different mushroom.
Well, that within the functional mushroom category, there isn't a mushroom that needs to be treated in that way. There are certainly herbs that need to be treated that way. Golden seal is a good example. It's only ever an acute short-term thing. You'd never take it long-term. But there aren't any mushrooms that we have free access to. Yeah.
And I guess this is just a good word to put out there. People, it's great that people are getting interested in mushrooms, and maybe they're coming from a background of working with herbs or whatever, but understanding the mechanism, and that mushrooms are definitely not herbs. They work differently, and these ideas about how things work don't translate across,
and I won't do it now, but you could get into the weeds of that, there's there's beta glucans, there's selective chemistry, and none of those categories fall under that requirement that they should just be short term or medium term.
Well, thank you for that. Let's move on to the next question, Britta. This is a great question from
That is
AJ.
good.
How does cordyceps increase energy, and should it not be taken at night?
Let's do the last part first. Some people get energized by cordyceps, and it's not a good idea to take at night, but that's not a general rule for everybody. In my experience, maybe around 4 or 5% of people derive energy from taking cordyceps, and being energized before you go to bed is not just it's not conducive to having sleep. So, if you want to go out and party, then that's a great idea. How cordyceps actually increases the energy is the subject of debate. We know that it does that because there's 1,000 years of history in traditional Chinese medicine, and I've got a few theories. One of the theories is that the beta glucans in cordyceps and the curiosities around the various polysaccharide active constituents have a preference in the body. When they're consumed, they either affect the bowel flora in a way that preferentially supports a particular type of bacteria that produces a particular type of metabolite, which has a particular preference for improving the way the lungs work properly, or those beta glucans may in fact get into the system and locate in the lung tissue to improve the way the lungs work. So the ability to harvest and produce energy from the oxygen is improved. Those two things that I've just said, you can also look inside, and we all know that mitochondria, are the power plants within our cells, and that they're what make the energy. So cordyceps improves some of the electron transport chain mechanisms which produce the ATP energy in our cells. So that kind of fits into what I was saying. And cordyceps militaris has a significant influence on improving kidney function. So the water-based wastes that get created as a result of transmuting the oxygen that we breathe into energy, that waste goes through the blood supply into the kidney, and then it gets excreted. So that energy kind of channel, that meridian, is improved significantly under the influence of cordyceps. So the energetic processes that create and then create the energy, eliminate the waste, are enhanced. And then cordyceps militaris is unique as a cordyceps species because it's got a molecule called cordycepin, and cordycepin gets taken up into the bloodstream. It gets altered into a metabolite. That metabolite is inactive, but it then gets taken up into cells and reconverted back into its original cordycepin shape. And there it can be modified so that it becomes a mimic of ATP, and that gets taken up into the cellular machinery to positively influence the way that the transcription of the messages from our DNA into the various pathways play out. That's a bit kind of technical to talk about, but at that kind of cellular level, cordycepin plays quite a unique role in optimizing how cells work, and that kind of probably translates as more efficiency in the system.
And and cordyceps. So a lot of people think that all mushrooms are adaptogens, but you say no, but cordyceps.
Yeah, I don't believe that cordyceps is an adaptogen.
You don't? Okay.
Adaptogens work on, very particular pathways that involve the HPA axis. Adaptogens are stress mimics. So the chemistry of the mushroom or the plant, the herb, needs to cause stress in the system in a good way, just like exercise is stressful and the body responds with the benefit. So I'm talking about the concept of hormesis, where like a little bit of stress is good for you.
Right.
Too much is bad. So there isn't any chemistry in the cordyceps mushroom that can be identified to be that kind of stressor. Like you could look at rhodiola and look at the rosavins, and there's very, very clear mechanisms as to how it performs that role. And using animal studies and the human clinical trial data, it's very easy to make sense of that. And if you look at my internet's slow, sorry, which is cutting in and out a bit. When you look at the definition about what an adaptogen is, it doesn't meet that definition. Alexander Panossian is the leading researcher in that field. And traditionally, cordyceps was a tonic. And in this modern world, it's very challenging to detail and explain complex things. And the difference between a tonic and an adaptogen, the difference between a tonic and an adaptogen in my world is huge. But in the world of social media and in the public arena, those two concepts kind of get merged together. And if it's a tonic, then it's an adaptogen. So not all tonics are adaptogens, but all adaptogens are tonics, if that makes sense. So cordyceps is very firmly in that tonic category. And a tonic, in my definition, means that it improves the tone and the vigor and the function, the physiological function of an organ or a system, or in fact the whole body. Whereas an adaptogen is a stress response modifier, and when you take it, you're more resistant to stress and strain. It's kind of splitting hairs a little bit. And for the average person, it probably doesn't make that much difference. But when we lose control of that narrative, it has consequences that we don't foresee. And then people start talking about how, people call echinacea an immune stimulant incorrectly. And then that causes complications, because then people don't want to use it because they don't want to stimulate their immune system. So when we use the language loosely, it challenges, the fundamental premise on how they are used traditionally.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's why I asked, because it seems like it's not a big deal, but it really is. And I mean, if we're here talking about mushrooms or herbs, it's like, we might as well use the correct terminology.
Yeah.
And there's, again, there's so much, I hear all the time that mushrooms are, they're all adaptogens. Well, they're not. Are there actually any mushrooms that are like, is reishi an adaptogen, or is it also a tonic?
Yeah, well, reishi's more of an adaptogen than cordyceps is.
Okay.
And I would rank reishi as a partial adaptogen, and I would put it at the bottom of that adaptogenic. If you had a list of top 10 things that were adaptogens, I'd probably put reishi at the bottom of that list. And I've been trying to create language that makes it accessible to people. So even though it's not technically correct, I've been referring to reishi as a vascular adaptogen. Yeah. Because when you look at the mechanisms of reishi, it gets into our vascular system and the cells that line our arteries, and it gets into our heart, and it prevents the stresses and strains in that system from causing challenges. Yeah. So that kind of, at that very highly specific location, it has a stress modifying response, and that kind of plays into that idea of an adaptogen.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, did I cut you off? Did you have more to say there?
No, we could go on and on. But
we could go on and on, but I did just want to back to that question about the cordyceps and sleep. I just wanted to quickly say that I can confirm that I was, and I'll use the term was, one of those people who could not take cordyceps at night. When I first started getting into mushrooms and using them back in 2019, I couldn't go near cordyceps. It wasn't that I couldn't fall asleep at night. It would be that I would fall asleep and I'd wake up like 3 or 4 hours later, just feeling like ready to go. Like I was getting too little sleep on cordyceps. And just in the past few months, and it may be because I finally gave up coffee and I changed my diet, that I've added cordyceps slowly to my routine. And I do I'm taking up to like a teaspoon of cordyceps a day, and having none of those issues that I was having originally. So, but
that's a good point that you raised, Joni. Often there's caffeine interactions with these herbs that produce energy. Yeah. Rhodiola is the classic one. And that's kind of the issue. And From a traditional point of view, cordyceps was a superior herb because they didn't differentiate mushrooms and herbs back then. And a superior herb could be taken, long term.
Right.
It was considered, safe and effective long term.
Yeah.
So,
but I will say about cordyceps, because I found this fascinating. I used to, I talk to a lot of people in this business. I talk to a lot of practitioners and et cetera. And we get a lot of questions. And I've shared that experience that I've had about cordyceps over the years. And I've had a number of people tell me that cordyceps helps them get up. Like they love cordyceps, they take it at night and it helps them get going in the morning. Like after taking cordyceps, they take it because it does help them, with rising in the morning. So
yeah. And some people don't sleep well because they don't have the kind of the energetic capacity because sleep's not a passive thing, it requires. So if that compartment of your energy channels, are not working properly, sometimes tonics at bed can actually, do the trick. So this is why, being a practitioner and understanding across a long period of time how to pitch these things to various, types of people is really the key.
Yeah.
And when we're doing it in the public domain, there's a certain amount of experimentation that needs to go on. And that's the value of this type of setting where, those questions can be raised and we can, gently guide people in those directions.
Exactly. We're not cookie cutter. We're each individuals and we each respond our own way. And as my old mentor, Dr. Tom Cameron used to say, anything can cause anything. So, we could all be talking about our experience with different mushrooms and
the difference between something healthy and something poisonous is the dose.
Yeah, exactly. Going to announce our promo code. I'm going to announcing it a couple times through this live. For people that are listening, take a screenshot, write it down. Restwell 25. We'll give you 25% off everything on our site. That's like all of our human products, our pet products, everything, hot chocolate, coconut creamer. We've got good tasting mushrooms and bitter mushrooms like reishi, which Lee loves. So, they make great Christmas gifts. Great, as Lee said, great for stocking up. So go for it. And we got Jordan on. Hey, Jordan.
Hi, Jordan.
One of our colleagues, and we'll get to your question, Jordan. So the next question: I've been using your mushrooms for about a year. I haven't noticed any difference. Why not? That's actually a great question.
That is a good question. I get that a lot, and there's not one right answer, I don't think, but one very good answer, which I find in clinic, is that there are actual changes that take place, gradually over the course of a year, using that as the metric. Yeah. But because the change is so slow and steady, the individual doesn't observe it, but an outside observer does, like me as the practitioner. Right. So that's the first thing to say in this context, is that this is you really need some kind of measurement, to be objective about it. Just noticing how you feel is not such a great way to do it, because they're quite subjective. And then sometimes people don't actually feel that much different, with a mushroom. And I might say that a year's not actually that long. When we're looking at our bowel flora, for example, taking mushrooms on a regular basis will slowly alter, the makeup and the balance of the gut bacteria, and that can take more than a year. I've seen patients, there's slow and steady progress over 4 and 5 years, and you don't notice much difference in terms of your immune health. But when you look back retrospectively, it's like, I don't have as many opportunistic infections like I used to. If I catch a cold, it's not as severe. I get better more quickly. So I would urge you to not let that influence your continuation of using mushrooms. Mushrooms are a food group that should be in the food pyramid separate to the vegetables. And to be optimally healthy, based on all of the epidemiological data, not looking at any traditional use, 2 to 3 servings of whole mushrooms a week make a lot of sense in terms of how healthy we are as we travel through our lifespan. So our cognition is supported, our cardiovascular health is supported. People have been shown to live a little bit longer when they take mushrooms regularly. And then we can use mushrooms as extracts to supplement that, because the epidemiological data tells us that the more you do, the better off your health is. So it's unless you're very focused on it and you're very creative in the kitchen, it's really hard to eat any more than 2 to 3 serves a week. It just becomes pretty much impossible. So when you do mushrooms every day, all of those epidemiological benefits that we see across, at least 20 well-conducted trials show that the benefits are much, much greater. So this is where the extracts step in. And doing some extracts on a daily basis, just makes great sense. And so see it as a nutrient, see it put it in the same category as drinking water or having your vegetables, or getting the right amount of protein. Mushrooms, fit into that nutritional scheme. And when we do it long-term, you would look back and say, oh, look, I'm way healthier than the cohort. And when I have my conversations about health with my wife, she's very focused on herself. Well, how come this didn't happen? I'm like, well, you've got to take a large number of people. You've got to have, say, 1,000 people. And then when you look at 1,000 people, you can start to pick out the influences but when it's just an individual, it's very hard to get kind of the significance from an objective perspective.
Yeah, no, I love this question. And, I think we're a culture, and understandably, we're looking for the quick fix. There are drugs out there that give us the quick fix. There are even some herbs that give the quick fix. I haven't found mushrooms to be that, although, we get testimonials from people that are saying, that are seeing these amazing results in a very short amount of time. That's not been my experience. I kind of liken it to watching grass grow. You just,
that's a good one.
But then then you notice it's time to mow the lawn. But another thing, it takes me back to, my background is veterinarian, working in hands-on veterinary practice. I mean, there's a reason that you go to the doctor and you fill out the form about what your symptoms are, what your issues are, and then you come back in for the recheck. And 90% of the time when people would come back in with their pets, they're like, I don't see any difference, or, I don't think it's working. But then we have what they wrote that said, and we can go through it and say, well, Fluffy had this going on, and is that still happening? Well, no. Is this still happening? Oh, okay. We forget we forget our starting point. And so I would encourage whoever asked this question to just keep taking your mushrooms. There's really no downside to it, whether you're eating them as culinary foods or, in extract form. So let's go on to our next question from Peapod89. Which mushroom would be most beneficial for helping your body have a better response to stress? We've been talking about this.
Well, that's the adaptogenic category. And I think my best answer for that question is Ergo Plus.
Yeah. And going back to somebody, we were talking about the dog and the tick bite. And Dennis was asking, what did you recommend? And I think you recommended the 5 Defenders and the Ergo was what you had been talking about for, if you had a dog that had a tick bite, you'd be doing the 5 Defenders. And did you mention the Ergo as well? I just saw that question come in and I wanted to address.
I think so, yeah. Well, the best defense against a tick bite is to have a really healthy and robust immune system. So it's not what you do at the time. It's what you do in the years and months preceding it. So I got bitten by a tick recently. So I've been doing my mushrooms for 5 years now daily. So I was pretty confident that it's not going to become a problem. So I altered my acute therapy from a herbal point of view. I upped my ergothioneine, but I didn't alter the dose of the mushrooms because I don't see them as acute things. I just continued with the same amount of mushrooms.
Awesome. All righty. Next question from Jordan. Family gatherings stress me out. All the prep involved. How can I support myself with this, with mushrooms, or just in general? And hi back at you. Who doesn't get stressed out by family gatherings, right? I mean, that's if you think you you're living a balanced life, go spend time with the family and
Well, Jordan, there's not a one size fits all answer for that question. And mushrooms as a category, or the functional mushrooms that we have access to at least, aren't strong enough in that kind of stress category to make them like the number one pick. So for somebody, it might be cordyceps, in the weeks leading up. For someone else, it might be reishi in the weeks leading up. For another person, it might be lion's mane. That might be the thing that helps take the edge off. And for many people, using Ergo Plus, making sure that the nervous system has got the background health that it needs to cope with the demands of what's going to happen at a family gathering kind of makes sense as well. So it isn't a single kind of answer, but those ones that I mentioned, probably kind of, cover the bases. And then nothing wrong with doing all of those all at the same time. I certainly do. Every one of those mushrooms and products that I just mentioned, I take them on a regular basis.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm thinking about what would help support me and the family. I love the idea of the hot chocolate. I mean, it's just such a nice thing, with a therapeutic dose of the 5 defenders. Nice ritual of having hot chocolate with the family.
Yeah,
might be nice.
With my herbalist hat on, kava is the standardized to kava lactones is a guaranteed kind of home run for dealing with that stressful situation. It acts quickly. It's entirely safe, and it actually brings harmony to it. If you could have everybody in the family take some kava, it decreases the triggering aspects of those interactions. It decreases thresholds for anger, and it makes people more loving.
Awesome. Well, we could all use more love in our lives, that's for sure. So gosh, we're almost out of time, but let's see. Are functional mushrooms safe for kids, seniors, or pregnant individuals? Can you give a general safety overview? That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. The general answer is yes. In the European Union, the mushrooms are considered, ergothioneine is considered safe in pregnancy when it comes from a mushroom, and they recommend 30 milligrams a day. So I've got theories around ergothioneine in pregnancy. The placenta is an avid accumulator of ergo, and it plays a very important role in maintaining healthy placental function during pregnancy. Ergo plays a very important role in the fetal brain, in neurogenesis, in areas we don't really fully understand. When the baby's born, breasts upregulate the ergo transporters, and breast milk is very replete with ergothioneine, and that never gets talked about. There's no formulas that contain additional ergothioneine for babies that aren't breastfed, for example. So, and there's a clinical trial with pregnant women that ate 100 grams of white button mushrooms a day, and their pregnancies were much healthier in their children, and the baby weight, etc., less preeclampsia, less gestational diabetes, etc. So pregnancy, yes, the more mushrooms a woman eats, the better. And for kids, we've got an epidemic of children being born with dysbiosis. A quarter of the children being born in the US don't have any detectable bifidobacteria. Bifidobacteria should be the dominant species in an infant gut, and that helps to create and set the tone for the immune system. It improves the way that the immune system responds to potentially allergenic substances in the environment. So I think that introducing mushrooms at an early age, particularly bland mushrooms that are nutritionally relevant, like oyster mushroom, for example, plays a really underrated role. So there isn't a stage of life or a person within that stage of life where mushrooms aren't relevant. And I think we're less healthy as a society and our communities because we don't eat enough of them.
Yeah. And this is probably a good place to remind people that we're talking about functional mushrooms that are safe to take, that there are mushroom, like, don't go out foraging for mushrooms if you're not an expert. And
if you don't know what you're doing.
Because just here in Northern California, there's been a rash of poisonings. People who are there was somebody in the parking lot of a grocery store, I guess, selling death cap mushrooms, and a bunch of people are hospitalized around that. I know it's awful. So we're talking about functional, safe mushrooms.
And don't forget that the white button mushroom or the portobello or the crimini, which are all part of the same kind of species, are very, very highly relevant and functional. They're not an inferior choice that has no value.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you believe we're out of time, Lee?
Yeah, look, we're a minute over. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, eh? I could talk like this all day.
I know. And you have. And I listen, and I could listen. So this was great. I learned a ton. Sorry for there. I know there are a few people that had some pet questions particularly in the chat that we didn't get to. Dr. Rob Silver and I do a Facebook Live for pets every month, and so our next one is going to be actually there's not one this December, but in January we'll be having one. So we can. Rob is probably more appropriate to answer the pet questions. Let's drop the promo code one more time. So REST1225 for 25% off site-wide until December 31st. So take a picture, go get your Christmas gifts, stock up, try if you're not on mushrooms, try them out and then watch the grass grow or have some sort of immediate response, right? Any final words, Lee?
Yeah, I always tend to say the same thing at the end of a summing up. It's, we all need to be taking some mushrooms all the time, and we just have to work out which ones we like, which ones we're comfortable with. And it's not just about supplementation. We need to be eating them on a regular basis as well. So we really need to be living, a fungal kind of lifestyle. And there's a lot of momentum behind this thinking now. And I think that regular mushroom consumption could really revolutionize the health, of the whole world. And certainly, the healthcare systems are struggling at the moment with what's going on. Mushrooms might be the answer.
Yeah, they've changed my life. I'll say that. I've been in the healthcare, industry for a long, long time, and mushrooms were I thought I was doing well, and then mushrooms have been a total game changer. So.
Me too. In the last 5 years since I've been fully focused on integrating mushrooms.
Yeah.
And I thought I was doing a great job with herbs, but in the last 5 years, particularly my immune health has advanced and improved like immeasurably.
Yeah, me too, 100%. Well, all hail the Emperor of Ergo, Carroll, for showing up in a...
I'm going to have to get a T-shirt with that on it.
Next time you're going to have to wear, I'm actually surprised why the questions didn't come up like, how do you get your hair to do that? And where do you buy those crazy shirts? We can't ask you anything, but maybe
we could have a random quiz one day, and I'm happy to answer those.
Oh gosh. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you again in the.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.